Okay, 5th grade math, TBT. We're going to discuss the Picturing Polygon benchmark assessment data. What kind of things do we want to discuss?
I had quite a few students that missed question number 7 about the perpendicular lines and parallel lines. Some of them just forgot to explain, but a few of them also were choosing the intersecting lines rather than the perpendicular lines. Did anyone have good strategies to come up with that would help that?
I had my kids make lines and draw a map and then label the map with street names, and they had to tell me which streets were parallel and which streets were perpendicular, so maybe that could help.
That would be a good thing to do for intervention. Thanks.
Also on number 7, did you accept GBIL as a line, or did they have to put just the 2 letters GL?
Oh, I counted GBIL as the line, even though we specifically discussed that lines are named with 2 letters.
I did the same thing.
Again, maybe that's something we could do in intervention, is discuss how they're named with 2 letters instead of 3 or 4 letters.
I also think we need to practice 4-point responses, because I think a lot of the kids only got 2 out of 4 because they didn't explain.
I agree.
On question number 3, there's a mistake which we need to fix for next time.
Yeah, there were 2 answers that could actually be true. That could be the correct answer, B and C. Did everybody else see that?
I saw that too, and I counted both, but maybe we could ask Megan to fix that for next year so we don't have the same mistake. Fix the test.
That would be good.
And when we're grading, do we count the hats on top of the letters as correct, or do we mark off if they don't put the hats?
I count as correct if they wrote out if they said BC is a line segment. If they wrote it out in words, I count as correct.
I did the same thing, but I wrote on there for them to remember to put their specific line segment or whatever. The hat was supposed to be on top of the letters.
I took points off if they didn't have the line segment on top, so my scores would look worse.
That should be something else, but we will have to
Discuss and make sure
talk
we...
about. Make sure we're on the same page.
Were there any other questions that you felt were...
Yeah, number 10, about draw a quadrilateral, and then name the quadrilateral and give the sum of the angles. I had a lot of students that drew the quadrilateral but then didn't name it or give the sum of the angles, so they had 2 points instead of 4 points.
I had a lot of 2-point questions or 2-point answers on that one as well, where it was the same exact problem. Any suggestions on how to get them to remember all 4 parts?
I know in my class we had talked about during intervention, we worked on the multi-step approach where we would take a question, for instance, question 10, and we would go through the actual problem and we would label. If it says name something, that's 1 point. If it said to label, that's another point. If it said to use specific words, they need to be in the answer as well to get the full points for the question, and it seemed to really help the kids.
When I practice extended response questions, I tell my kids to split the box into 4 sections and look for the 4 questions, and each section of the box needs an answer. So to get all 4 points, they have to highlight the 4 questions, split the box into 4 sections, and then answer each question in an individual box.
I do the same thing, and the students had their 4 boxes and they were still leaving the 2 blank. So I don't know if they didn't know the answer or if they were forgetting to do it.
I noticed that on the congruent parallelograms also. They didn't tell me the angle for E. They just said that they were congruent but didn't actually give me an angle measurement.
I had a lot of kids do that too on my tests.
So maybe that is something we can hit in intervention. Make sure that somebody does like an intervention enrichment for 2 and 4 point answers.
Okay. Does anyone want to do that for intervention enrichment planning?
I'll take that position.
That might be a good idea since you did some of that already.
I'll create something for angles and lines and naming.
And I'll create something for missing angles and quadrilaterals.
I can share the worksheet that I already did with my kids where they had to create a map to help them with parallel perpendicular lines, because that's similar to question 7.
I can do coordinate grids.
And I'll do circles, the radius and diameter. Okay, is there anything else we need to discuss with the assessment?
I don't think so.
Okay, everybody needs to bring their intervention enrichment ideas next time we meet, and that way we can share them so we're not creating the same thing.
When are we planning to retest this benchmark?
Do you think 2 weeks is good enough?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.